Retired Navy commander defends pro-drag recruitment video. Retired U.S. Navy Commander Julianna Vida has slammed the Republican lawmakers' criticism of the use of a drag queen to boost recruitment. Vida told Fox News that Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville's position was destructive and works to undermine the Navy's ability to recruit new members. The senator declared the Navy's ad to be the branch's Bud Light moment, referring to recent controversy that erupted out of the Anheuser-Busch brand's use of transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney, as a spokesperson. She called the drag queen promotional campaign a critical method to welcome traditionally excluded segments of our population. Tuberville warned the military branch had become preoccupied with identity politics after it announced that Joshua Kelley, who goes by the stage name Harpy Daniels, had been promoted to become its digital ambassador. Vida, a 30-year veteran who is member of the Naval Academy Alumni Association Board of Trustees, said that the conservative senator's criticism is merely a trope that plays well exclusively to a socially conservative base. She said that harnessing the power of social media to reach out to the LGBTQ+ community is a way for the Navy to appeal to all people in a society who are willing and able to volunteer their lives to the service of the nation. And that last part to me is actually the most impactful thing, that these are, members of our community that are actually willing to defend the laws of this nation, and yet they're completely not only, disregarded, but criticized.
Can I actually add that in World War II, there were actually soldiers that actually did drag themselves for fun. So what's the problem here? Why is it a bad thing that they're using drag queens to promote it? They literally did it themselves.
This whole drag panic is prevalent because they really have nothing else to say. They have no good policies. They couldn't figure out how to attract anyone after Roe v. Wade and other, related anti-women rulings. And now they're trying to, create a bugaboo out of thin air. But more to the point, the thing is, social sciences and actually marketing has always indicated that right now the economy is good, and therefore usually recruitment ads tend to be more fanciful because there's less available recruits out there to join the Navy, Army, Marines, Air Force, etc. And meanwhile, if the economy turns south, these ads would disappear and replaced by things that will reflect the actual hardness of being in the military. That's actually tried and true.
Point. And when we're sitting at 3% unemployment, I imagine recruitment in our armed services is more difficult.
Yeah, and
it is, absolutely.
I mean, they can just send a bunch of Marines to Wilton Manors, I'm sure.
Right. One final thought. I want to specifically focus on this senator from
Alabama.
From Alabama, Tommy Tuberville. This is a university football coach, very noted, very controversial in terms of him running for the seat that was held in one term by a Democrat. He blows a dog whistle. And I think it is a very distressing dog whistle. The military is preoccupied by identity politics. Well, if the military was preoccupied by any other issue, the GOP would say that's absolutely okay with us because the military and flag waving and. He zeroes in on something of criticism of the military because he doesn't like the embracement of this drag recruitment. And it's not a question of whether it's successful or not. It is because he's against it. He's against drag queens. He's against the LGBTQ+ community. And this is the way he'll get at it, by going after the military. But it is a disgraceful statement. The senator from Alabama is disgraceful. It is a nature of preoccupied by identity politics. Well, I hope it is. And I hope the military is focusing and preoccupied on identity politics, because in the United States in the last century, they have done better than any other segment of American population in terms of propelling progressive thought in America. In the 1940s, long before America was willing to integrate in any possible way for the Black community, the military did it. They were preoccupied by identity politics of black people. And so black recruits began in the 40s, and they began to embrace, which led to the issues of segregation in the 50s and ultimately to civil rights in the 1960s. And historians say it started with the US military. In the 1950s, the military was preoccupied in identity politics that began to talk about the equality of women. And they pushed it in the US military far beyond and further than we were in American society. So in the 1960s, when the television show represents the Mad Men, the US military was already ahead of the curve, which led to the sexual revolution of the 1970s, initiated by the US military 20 years earlier.
Obviously a pattern here.
A pattern.
So do you believe that that's what's going to happen with trans people?
Absolutely. The U.S. military's embracement of all means all is ahead of American thinking and ignorance thinking in America of black, of women, of other minority groups that have representation. LGBT, they were ahead of America in LGBT. Don't Ask, Don't Tell was an embracement in the 90s, and the military came there faster to embracement of LGBT. I went to a pride celebration at the Pentagon in 2014 or 2015. A pride celebration. Senator Tuberville would have hated to attend the Pentagon's Pride celebration. Our military is always ahead of American society because through the structure of the military, they don't deal with Fox News's and they don't deal with Tommy Tubervilles. And so as a result, they push it on.
Well, it sounds like that they're pursuing all men and women are created equal. And that's the way it's supposed to be.
Which is identity politics.
We're all created equal.
Concept, yeah.
And who cares what you do? If you're a productive member of society, who cares what you're doing?
That's exactly it. We are Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only live daily LGBTQ+ evening news show from Happening Out Television Network. In the model of PBS and NPR, we educate, inform, and entertain by supporting the 10 pillars of the LGBTQ+ community, with more than 100,000 a week watching on Roku, Apple Television, and other channels. To keep the stories going, we accept donations with 100% transparency. Stay updated and live authentically with Queer News Tonight.